Hello there. This is the Home Buyer Virtual Workshop, hosted by yours truly, Community Realtor Kasama Lee, with my guest speaker, Michelle Ryan, who's gonna, I'm gonna properly introduce her in just a little bit. Thank you for being on with us. I'm gonna go ahead and bring the share screen in so that you could see. See, we actually have slides. Oh my God, we're so organized.
Wow.
Okay, so we are going to start with some house rules, okay? We're gonna have set aside time for any questions and answers at the end so that we could go through the presentation. It's really a conversation between what I bring from the real estate industry and what Michelle would bring in from the mortgage industry. And we were hoping that this would be adding value to you and also enlighten you a little bit about the facts, because the markets have changed so much, especially with the pandemic at the beginning of this year. And the real estate industry has been on a roller coaster ride along with the mortgage industry. So we want to kind of keep things straight and let you know what's happening now. Does that sound good? Good. And feel free to post your comments in the chat session so that we could go through them later, and or feel free to just ask them at the end, okay? All right, so we talked about getting the facts about home buying in today's market, which is what we're gonna do now. But instead of doing it in the traditional way, we're like the teachers and we're the one who does all the, here's how it works. We want to do the opposite. We want to be out of the box. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to tell you about some myths, the things that people believe to be true. And in my experience as a real estate agent for 16 years, I know that there are a lot of people out there thinking that they are not in position to buy or, you know, get an investment property or what have you, because their belief system is from what the rules were 20 years ago or 10 years ago even, and a lot has changed, haven't they, Michelle?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like a dance. So you've got to learn the new dance today of how it works now. So that's what we're going to be sharing with you, the myths, the 5 top myths of home buying, okay? So, oh, before I do that, I got my slides in order in my head.
We're gonna reverse those next time.
We're gonna do this. So a little bit about myself. My name is Kasama Lee. I have been in real estate as a real estate agent for 16 years. I've been a producing agent and have gone through the market when we went through, you know, the market was thriving, when the market was tanking in 2009, 2010. And, you know, we're actually in a healthy market stage right now. And I am out of the RE/MAX American Canyon office. We have offices all over the, you know, the Bay Area, actually all over the country. And what I love is I'm able to bring in the community serving piece into the work that I do. So as a matter of fact, we use our RE/MAX office for, you know, cookies distribution for our graduating class of 2020 seniors. We did the lawn sign distribution there for our American Canyon Middle School. I just love that I could blend the stuff that I love, which is supporting the youth and our community, into the work that I do in real estate by serving families in buying and selling their homes and educating them and guiding them through the process. And so far, my clients are still my friends, so that's a good thing, right? So I love what I do. That's me. Okay, so Michelle Ryan, like I said, is an expert in the lending industry. I made a philosophy to not cross over. I know enough about loans, but I am not a lender by any stretch of the imagination, and I thought it would be a true value to you to hear from the expert herself. So Michelle, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon at this point. I know Brian, Josh, I feel like we've crossed paths at some point, so good to see some, I guess, again. I am Michelle Ryan. I am a loan officer and sales manager for Del Sur Mortgage. Our branch is has been serving Napa Valley for about 17 years. We started off here in Napa. I'm at the Napa branch today, but we are very fortunate to be expanding into American Canyon. I am a local resident of American Canyon. I've lived in American Canyon since 2010. So my goal for the past 8 years since I've been working here at the branch has been to make some sort of presence in American Canyon and kind of bridge our office here in Napa with American Canyon residents, because our community needs more resources and more one-on-one and that FaceTime with professionals, and just to have that resource for our friends and family and our neighbors. So I'm so happy and excited. Last year we got a branch in American Canyon through the local chamber office, so I rent a little desk there. Obviously since COVID hit, I've been working more from home. But the mortgage industry is absolutely booming right now, not only with purchase loans like we're going to talk about today, but refinance as well. And I am just really excited that Kasama invited me to come on today. I've known Kasama since before I got into the lending industry about 8 years ago. So I'm very honored to be here and to be a part of this, and I look forward to assisting you along the way and sharing a little bit of information as we go along here.
Thank you. So it just occurred to me that if somebody tries to sign on, I have no way of knowing that, because I don't know how I would see the full screen. Oops, sorry guys. So that's not good, is it? I don't know how I would do that. Anyway, moving on. Well, if you are trying to sign on, if you have my cell phone number, 707-567-1049, please text me and I will let you in, because I no longer have the ability to see that notification screen on Zoom. All right, so having said that, the other thing I think is important, I know that Michelle and I are like, you know, we're raising our families in American Canyon, but we don't just do business in American Canyon. I know that I have clients in Napa and Solano counties, Fairfield, Cordelia, what is that? Napa, Vallejo, Benicia. Yes, and I've gone as far as Backwell and even Dublin, you know, so we are licensed to serve clients in all of California, but we just love it here so much, so we can't stop talking about American Canyon. What can you say? All right. Okay, so myth number 1. Oh, actually 5 myths. So here are the summary of what we're going to talk about, okay? Myth number 1 is about that you must have 20% down. Number 2, you must have a perfect credit score. Myth number 3, now is a bad time to buy a home. Oh, if I could just tell you the traffic that we're getting right now. Number 4, you should purchase a home at the top end of your pre-approval. And myth number 5, it's cheaper to buy a fixer-upper. Now, after these 5 solid myths that we're going to go through, we can't give you enough free stuff. We're going to have free extra bonus myths after this, okay? Are you ready for more free stuff?
A surprise.
Everybody nods. Okay. All right. So myth number 1, you must have 20% down. Some of the home buyers workshops that I've done in the past, I would do these little quiz cards. And it blew my mind how many people would actually, in multiple choices, they would check that they have to have 20% down to be able to buy. And it has literally stopped a lot of people when I just have conversations, just, you know, casual conversations with people. They're like, well, I don't have 20%. So that's why I'm renting. And I'm like, oh my, like the Home Alone. So I just want to make sure that you know that that is a myth with a capital M, okay? So I thought that this is where Michelle could really enlighten all of us about the different down payment structures that's out there. Michelle, please.
Yes, 20% down is, it's an ideal number. There's a lot of perks that come along with 20% down. Your loan amount will be lower, your monthly payments will be lower, you are avoiding mortgage insurance. You can avoid, if you wish, to set up an escrow or impound account, which is something where they wrap in your property taxes and homeowners insurance each month. So 20% down absolutely is a golden number. It just gives you a lot of different options with how to set up your payments and things like that. And it does kind of give you that wiggle room with that 20% down. Now I'm talking conventional 20% down. There's a big rainbow, guys, of loan programs out there. So I'm just going to talk about the few basic kind of most popular loan programs. So one being your standard conventional loan, which you not only can put 20% down, you can go as low as 3% down payment on a conventional loan, assuming your credit score fits the guides, assuming that your debt to income ratio can handle the monthly payment, but that's a whole nother subject. So just sticking to the loan programs and the down payment options, 20% absolutely your goal, but you can go as low as 5% down on a conventional. You can go as low as 3% down on a conventional. You can even tie in a 0% down payment assistance program to a conventional loan program, and that's another conversation. In addition to your standard conventional loan programs, we have our government FHA and VA and USDA programs. So again, you're looking at a minimum of 3.5% down on an FHA program. FHA, 3.5% down. You are looking at tying in mortgage insurance through the FHA. You are required to set up the impound or escrow account and things like that. So with each down payment program and loan program, there are different flavors that go along with it. So that's a deeper conversation, and I could go on and on about this slide all day long. But my job today is just to kind of let you know that conventional FHA, VA, USDA are the big standard products that are available to you with the different down payment options that you see there in front of you.
Thank you. And one of the myths that I had, I thought that USDA was about the food, but clearly about the loan.
It's agriculture.
I didn't know that. I haven't had a client who had a USDA loan.
You don't see it very often in this neck of the woods.
Right.
It would be very popular in the valley, like off Highway 5, like the rural valleys of California. So there's lots of agriculture loans that are out there.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Let's go to myth number 2. You must have a perfect credit score. And really, in life, what is really perfect? Perfect is non-existent. And what does that even mean? So, and you know what? I've had clients too that have said, you know, our credit score is terrible. And they don't even know what terrible is, right? Because like we're not credit scores expert, but they think that the credit score, I mean, these are the myths, ladies and gentlemen, of what keeps people from buying, okay? So we must have a perfect credit score. What do you have to say about that, Michelle?
Like Kasama said, what is a perfect credit score? I would love, if this were more interactive, I would ask Brian and Josh what they thought perfect credit.
We could make it interactive, but I don't know how to do that. How do I unmute you? Oh, there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Josh, unmute yourself.
Perfect credit score is.
Well, yeah, I would agree that there is no perfect, right? So it's going to be case by case, I would imagine. You know, depending on your debt to income, your actual income, you could probably have a lower credit score if you had a better situation there. So I would say 700 is probably the magic number in my experience. If you're over 700, you're probably got a pretty good chance if other things aren't clean. But yeah, I would agree. There is no perfect credit score. So many variables in everyone's individual situation.
Right.
Yeah, that's my experience.
Thank you. You're right on the money there as far as a credit score and how it fits into the puzzle of a loan application. It varies for everybody, and it depends on backing up to what loan program you can qualify for. So credit score, there's different loan programs that'll handle something, you know, 600. Right now, anything below a 600, because of the pandemic and because of restricting guidelines on all these programs, it's going to be tough to find anything that will accept you if you have a credit score below 600. Anything above 600, 640, 700, 740 into the 800s, you're looking at different, you know, more options available to you for loan programs. And again, FICO also dictates how expensive or what interest rate will be provided to you and that loan program. So the higher your credit score, the better your interest rate will be available to you depending on market conditions. That'll fluctuate. But if you're looking at the range today on a 600 FICO score versus a 740 FICO score, you're absolutely going to see a better rate for that person with a higher credit score. And credit scores too, keep in mind, we look at your mortgage rating credit reports. So we don't just look at a consumer rating credit report that you might get on your phone from your banking institution every day. It kind of gives you a little update on Experian or TransUnion or Equifax, who are the three main credit bureaus. The mortgage rating credit reports give us a lot more detail regarding your credit profile. Goes back years and years. It'll pull things from when we were all in college. So it's going to look at everything, and it's going to weigh your scores differently versus a consumer rating credit report. So going back to, you know, an FHA loan right now, you have to have a minimum of 600 FICO score to be eligible for an FHA loan, which is pretty forgiving on the loan program scale. We'll talk about score ratings being tiered. Brian, let's see. Being tiered as in, if you have a 740 or higher, you are in a different tier than if you were in a 640 to 720 range. Absolutely. So as far as pricing goes and interest rates go, that is, I guess, considered a tier when we're looking at interest rates. And that's something that gets analyzed through our automated underwriting systems when we combine all the data together. So yeah, there are tiers if we're putting it in context to looking at different interest rates for different tiers of credit scores.
Michelle?
Yes.
Could you just touch briefly on, you know, people who are, because I also have I call them the, you know, not the wait list, I guess they are. They want to buy, but the credit scores are not at par where it would be beneficial for them to buy, so they have to work on their credit. Could you touch on that a little bit on what you would do when they're not ready? Like, what's the process that you do with those individuals?
Absolutely, great question. And this goes into the category of our application process in general. So step one, what we do for our loan applicants is we always start out by ordering a credit report. There is no point in putting somebody through the process of collecting a bunch of financials, getting everything verified, and then pulling your credit report and going, oh, you have a 540 credit score. I don't have a loan program that's going to work for you today. You know, guidelines change, programs change. Right now, it's very strict because of COVID and all the pressure that's being put on the markets and the industries and the banks and the secondary market. But so right there, number one, we stop and look at your entire credit report profile. I don't just look at your score. We go through each trade line, which is an accumulation of data from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And it gives us kind of indicators as to why they are scoring you the way they are. So we can go through each one and go, okay, maybe your balances are too high on all these credit cards. Maybe you have some medical collections that you forgot about from college that are still sitting here putting a big shadow on your credit report and it's weighing you down. What can we do to eliminate these challenges to kind of uplift your credit score, get it looking nice and clean, and then we run it again. It depends on who the vendors are, where the problems are laying, and from there we can decide what the strategy is to help clean that up and boost your credit score.
Great. So one other question that has come up with people that I've come across, they are talking to two different lenders. They get their credits run with one lender, then they're getting their credits run with another lender, and they're asking, now is this gonna ding my credit score that it's getting rerun by two different inquiries?
Yeah.
How's that work?
Great question. We hear that a lot as well. As long as it's within 30 days and you are shopping around different lenders and you're getting your mortgage rating credit report pulled, not an auto loan, not a Macy's card, mortgage credit report pulled, you want to keep all of those inquiries within 30 days. If you start doing it beyond 30 days, you are going to start noticing some hits on your credit. And it's going to depend on how impactful that is, depending on what's already on your existing credit report. So if you don't have any wiggle room for extra queries, like if you're at a 640, I would stop and make sure you know where you want to go and get your credit report pulled next. Because if you just go right below that 640 mark, you might be jeopardizing your loan program that you were just looking at that you could qualify for.
Yeah.
Keep your mortgage inquiries to a minimum, but keep them within 30 days. Now, if you go and start applying for consumer credit cards or auto loans or other creditors, the more you do that, the more activity, the more hits will show up on your credit report as well. So that could play into hurting your credit score. Absolutely.
Do you know anything about Credit Karma? I've been told that that's a safe way to kind of take a peek of where you're at with your credit score without dinging it, if you run it yourself.
Yes, you can. Credit Karma is a good tool. It's a good resource to keep an eye on what sort of activity is being reported on your credit profile from the bureaus. It's not going to calculate your score the same way a mortgage rating credit report would pull your scores in after all the algorithms that go on behind the scenes there on a mortgage rating credit report. But it absolutely is a good way for you as a consumer to keep an eye on the activity, make sure that your Kohl's charge card isn't being used by a fraudulent person, and it's creating some pressure on your credit activity. So by all means, Credit Karma, any of the credit checks through your banking institutions. Absolutely a good way to keep an eye on the activity. Kind of gives you a baseline as to what the scores might be presenting through the 3 bureaus. And if I pulled your mortgage credit report today after you just looked at your Credit Karma, it might be pretty close. It might not be.
Really?
It's a good start. It's a good start, but it's not going to be apples to apples. It'll be within a range. And again, the range, or like Brian said, the tier is huge, because once you start slipping below a 740 credit score, that's when, you know, your interest rate pricing changes and different loan program requirements start to change.
Okay.
You're at a 740 on Credit Karma, but I pulled your credit at a 738, it's not going to give you the same benefit.
Gotcha. All right. Okay, so myth number 3. So there are 2 distinctions between a recession and a housing crisis. They're not one of the same, okay? And we are in a recession. There is no doubt about it. You wouldn't know it though, the way people are house shopping, but we are in a recession. But however, right now we are not. We are not in a housing crisis. There, historically, since the 1980s, you could see the charts, right? In the 1980s, these were all reflective data of when we were actually in economic recessions. In the 1980s, we were in a recession, but guess what? The housing prices appreciated, continued to rise, 6.1%, okay? This is nationwide. In 1981, still in the recession, it appreciated at 3.5%. In 1991, that was when we were in a housing crisis. The dark blue reflects the actual housing crisis, where people were losing their homes, there were foreclosures, and so on and so forth. So that dipped in 1991 to 1.9% negative. Then 2001, we were in a recession again, but guess what? Housing prices appreciated by 6.6%. The next recession that we had was, and I think a lot of people remember this, was a housing crisis that was a hugest dip in history of 19.7 negative in depreciation in housing prices. And if you remember, that was an opportunity for a lot of people. I mean, there was a lot of pain in all of that for those who couldn't keep their homes, but it became a buying opportunity for a lot of families who could have never bought before. I still have clients today that bought their second home during that time, or moved up during that time, and you know, people that came from a rental situation that were able to buy. And I mean, those prices were ridiculous. Like when I pull comps now, when I look at the history of when they bought it, I was like, home alone again, because it was just crazy, the prices. So we are currently, I repeat, not in a housing crisis. We are definitely in a recession because of the unemployment, and that's a great indication. Anytime you have a high number of unemployment, whatever the cause may be, we're in a recession, okay? But we're not having a housing crisis, clearly, because I recently just had 2 listings, happened to both be in American Canyon, that both received crazy multiple offers. Also, the month before, like as COVID hit, I think end of March, I put 2 houses on the market. They went into escrow literally like, I don't know, within a week. And then the rules came that people couldn't go into the houses. So then I put another listing on. Nobody, like the buyer of the house put in an offer, never saw the house. We negotiated, we accepted the offer, then they came to look. How about that? So does that sound like a housing crisis to you?
No.
Can I get a synchronized head shaking, please? Oh God, I gotta take a picture. Wait, hold on. I can't help it, sorry. You didn't know you were gonna sign up for all this. Okay, wait. Can I get a head shaking synchronized? Are we in a housing crisis?
No.
I love you guys, thank you. All right, that was myth number 3. Michelle, anything you want to add here?
I just thought, now is opportunity. I mean, just to kind of piggyback on what Kasama said, I mean, it's an absolutely incredible time. I'm seeing so many first-time home buyers go through the application process, and those who are fortunate to be gainfully employed, and we can verify and look at all their income and assets. Now is just a fantastic opportunity with interest rates being so low. So many different loan programs available. Our city and county of Napa still have down payment assistance programs available that are, there are funds available, as of the last time I checked. And, but now is opportunity, take advantage of the real estate market and own a home and stop paying rent. I think that's to chime in.
All right. Myth number 4. You should purchase a home at the top end of your pre-approval. So what that means, to clarify, let's say you're pre-approved for $500,000. You're thinking, oh, let me buy a $500,000 home. So as I mentioned to you before, it's a competitive bidding war market right now. You need to leave a little bit. So when I work with a client, so let's say they're pre-approved for 500, I talk to them about like, what is really the reasonable monthly mortgage you're making, that you can make, including tax and insurance. And let's just work it backwards from there, okay? And so $500,000 may not be what you need to shoot for. And if you fall in love, with a $500,000 home, and then there were 3 other offers. Now you're capped out. You have no room to bid up, to be competitive. And for me, as a real estate agent, I feel like it's a disservice. I didn't do my job. I didn't educate my client that, you shouldn't be buying right at the top edge of what you're pre-approved for, because now you have no room to wiggle, right? So the other thing I want to mention about this before I turn this over to Michelle is there is a difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval. So when somebody calls me and says, because a lot of my clients are referrals, right? So sometimes they come in already with the lender relationship, which is great. And they go, I would do the intake with them, and I would say, have you worked with the lender? Oh yeah, I'm pre-approved. And I said, so what was the process that you did? Oh, I got online, right? I typed in some information, and they told me I'm pre-approved for this, $900,000. I'm like, okay, that's wonderful. Now we're gonna really get you pre-approved.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's a whole due diligence process that has to happen for someone to actually be pre-approved. What that person who thought they were pre-approved for $900,000, the fictional person that I just mentioned, not a real person, they were pre-qualified. The due diligence was not done. There were no verifications. Now I'm stepping into Michelle's zone, so I'm gonna stop. But yeah, don't tell me you're pre-approved until you tell me what you did. Then I'll know if you're pre-approved. And by the way, as a real estate agent, at least that's how I work. I truly believe it's a total disservice for me to take a person or a family to go look at any houses without a pre-approval in their hands. I won't do it. And if you want to leave me, bye-bye, because you still don't know if you can afford that house, and I'm not going to be one of those agents who's going to take you out just to get you going, get you excited, and then for you to be let down later once you actually get pre-approved that you're approved, $100,000 less than what we've been showing. So it's not a good use of their time. It's not a good use of my time. And that's not what you hired me to do. So I'm passionate about that, as you can tell, because I won't show you a house until I see a pre-approval from a trusted lender, not even just your lender, a trusted lender. Let me qualify that. Okay. All right, so Michelle, what do you have to say about the whole process of pre-approval?
I'm equally as passionate and equally as tough. I'm not going to issue any pre-approval letter to anyone just because they showed me their pay stub. It doesn't work that way. And so the myth that you can just bring me your pay stub and tell me how much you make every year, and you want a pre-approval letter because you want to go make an offer on a home. I love the enthusiasm, but like Kasama said, there is a process to get that piece of credible information and that credible document that is so critical when one is home buying and home shopping and making those offers with their trusted realtor. So a pre-qualification is something I would define as a very surface, maybe it's an intent to proceed into the application process in general, but I won't even write a pre-qualification letter unless I am allowed and authorized to run somebody's mortgage credit report. So that is bare bones right there. And even then, I can't remember the last time we issued a pre-qual letter, because it's just like Kasama said, it's very false information. It has not been verified. It has not been through the system. It has not been through the car wash, for lack of better words. We have to go through the process. So just looking at the slide here to reiterate the process to get that pre-approval, you start out by submitting a very simple loan application. You know, we're looking at your credit, we're looking at your employment history, making sure you have 2 years of consecutive like industry employment, that you're not going from being a waiter to an astronaut, basically. Like, it has to make sense in the realm of your employment. And then looking at your income based on that employment, making sure there's no big dive in income, or you're going from salary W-2 to straight commission. I can't use your commission income if you haven't had a 2-year history. So very, it gets pretty nitty gritty if you haven't already been through the process or it's been a while. We really have to scrutinize it with a magnifying glass, your employment and your credit. Your employment and your income. That comes after your credit, which we've already hashed over a lot, so I won't go there. And so obviously your credit score is good. Let's move into your income and asset verification. So we also, especially during this pandemic, we've had a lot of extra guidelines that have been thrown on our industry for those who are self-employed. We have to look at their P&Ls, their year-to-dates, their cash flow, their receipts, their pending appointments on their dental books or their doctor books, what have you. We've had to do a lot of unpeeling of the onion for people and folks who are self-employed, just to be able to get them through that income verification piece. And I'm talking during a pre-approval process, not necessarily just a refinance. And then of course your assets. Where are your funds coming from? Are they coming from France? Are you expecting a gift from your folks in France and they're gonna have to wire the money? I'm gonna have to trace all that. This is real. This is what happens. Or are you getting a gift fund from your folks here downtown? And are you in an FHA program? Are you in a conventional program? How are we going to trace these funds? Are you using funds from a 401k? I'm going to have to look to see, do you already have a loan on that 401k? How are these funds going to play into your overall profile? So we take each little sliver of the pie, credit, income, and assets. make sure everything looks good, and then assuming everything is verified, then that's when we issue you a pre-approval letter to go shopping.
Whew, I'm tired. So listen to that. You're like, whew. Okay, but that's some serious due diligence that has to happen. And
It's serious due diligence.
Yeah, and I casually ask some of those questions, and it gives me a clue of where they're really at with their pre-approval process.
Yeah.
By the way, because we're in the pandemic, so this is not an evergreen information. When I have a listing, I'm representing the seller, the buyer's agent has to submit a COVID entry form to say that they're not sick and all that stuff. But in addition, I request for a pre-approval letter. So they can't even access the property to be with their agent if they're not pre-approved, because there's no reason to. What? Why? Right? Anyway, that should be just a evergreen requirement, but I'm strict about that. Yeah.
And I want to just say one more thing on the pre-approval letters, and going back to what Kasama said, assuming you are pre-approved for a purchase price of $500,000, depending on what loan amount that is, loan amount could be whatever you're qualified for, not necessarily your purchase price. You could be coming in with an extra $500,000 behind you to make your purchase price that much more. So we base your pre-approval on what you can qualify for on a loan amount, okay? And then let's say Kasama takes you out shopping, you guys want to write a letter on a property. I'm not going to give Kasama one letter and be done. It's going to be a letter that's tailored, specific to your offer and specific to that property. So before I even issue that letter, I want to make sure that property isn't a 2-unit property versus a 1-unit property. Does that property lay on 10 acres of land? If it does, that kind of is an additional step that has to happen behind the scenes before I can issue that pre-approval letter. So a lot of communication between realtor and lender up front, get those questions vetted out ahead of time as best you can. Hopefully there's a title report already pulled. If there's any kind of question, is that an accessory dwelling unit or is it a full second unit on the property? That puts pressure and more variable on your loan qualification. That's why I mentioned that.
Awesome, thank you. Is this helpful? Is this useful information? Okay, good. I haven't lost anybody yet, right? Okay, so we're down to about 12 minutes left. I just want to make sure we clearly have a lot to share, and we're gonna have to pick up the pace a little bit here. Okay, myth number 5. I'm just gonna touch on this, okay? People think that it's cheaper to buy a fixer-upper. I can't tell you how many times I get inquiries of like, oh my God, it's like a $350,000 purchase, and market price would be like $450,000, and I get all these calls and texts and what have you, right? So here's the only thing I will say to you about this. Unless you have a contractor crew in place, unless you have a wad of cash that you're ready to whip out once you get the keys to that fixer-upper, right? And you peel the layers and you rip the carpet out and you see stuff underneath that you didn't know. Because when you're buying a fixer-upper, you're kind of buying it as is in its current condition. That's why it's a fixer-upper, and that's why it's priced way below market. There's a reason for all of those things. So if it's too good to be true, you got to look and make sure you have the toolbox after you get the keys, after you successfully purchase, to be able to turn it into not a fixer-upper, which is going to take money regardless. So the way I look at all of that in the simplest term, you either finance what you're purchasing, or you're coming out of pocket after you purchase to make it whole so that you can rent it out, flip it, resell it, or whatever that you're going to do. So beware when you're thinking that it's cheaper to buy a fixer-upper when you don't know the true condition of the property you bought. And and even regular not fixer-upper, sometimes you don't realize, something that's been kind of brewing in the house until you moved in, right? A fixer-upper is an extreme condition of a distressed property. So just beware of that. So that's all I want to say about that. I'm not a pro and con to it, but I think that as an agent to my client, I make sure they understand the repercussion of buying a fixer-upper. Michelle?
You know, and for those who are just adamant that they are jumping on that bandwagon, there are specialty loan programs available for those who are really wanting or needing funds for that renovation up front, such as a 203K loan. I'm not going to get into the weeds. There are specialty products available to get you those funds that you think you might need to do that fixer-upper, get it to where you want it, and then, you know, a lot of people refinance out of that specialty loan product because it is expensive. There's more higher rate attached to that. It's specialty. And so I just wanted to, you know, touch on that. There are funds available in those sort of situations.
But they have to be owner occupant, right? You can't.
Owner occupied, sorry, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Good point, thank you.
Can't be for investors. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Correct.
Bonus myth, more freebies. Free. Okay. You should choose the lender with the lowest advertised interest rate. The rate says 1.5% online. I'm applying. What do you think, Michelle? What do you have to say about that?
Read the small print with magnifying glass. Because I guarantee you there is a whole bunch of what ifs in there, or if onlys, or assuming, or as long as. So your personal profile, your parameters have to check every single little box within their little promo, and then you're probably going to be paying for that somewhere along the line. So yeah, your rate might be 2%, but and it might say, you know, no closing costs, but it's somewhere along the line will be embedded into the rate somewhere. So just beware, you know, there's so much fraud out there today. There's so much solicitation. The second you get your credit report pulled, you're going to get bombarded with solicitations from banks, and they might even look like your banking institution or your current mortgage servicer sending you information. But just be very mindful to you know, jump on the lowest rate possible bandwagon, because these guys don't know you. They don't know you yet. They don't know your credit score. They don't know your all of your profile. So just be mindful. I mean, it's easy to say, yeah, that's a great rate, but you know, don't get your hopes.
You get it, right? Yeah. Okay. Extra bonus myth. It's cheaper to rent than to own. It's cheaper to rent than to own. And you know what I found is, well, I don't know, when rates are like under 3% right now, is it really cheaper to rent than to own, right? And if you think that if you're renting and you think you can't afford a home, think again. I just have a quick story to tell. I have a client who, they were living in this was like a few years ago, actually, when rates were a little bit higher. They were in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath with a lot of people in it, and they were renting, and they were like, you know, could we just explore to see if we could buy, right? So fast forward, they were able to get a home, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They got now an extra bathroom. Thank you very much, for a lot of people in the house. And then they posted on Facebook, which like filled my heart. Like after they moved in, they said, oh my gosh, our mortgage is $22 more than our rent that would have gone up, because the reason they were looking to buy was because the rent was going up. See, that's the one thing you don't get control over, right? When the rent goes up, and while you're paying somebody else's mortgage, namely your landlord, rent would have gone up, and they're like, oh my God, it's $22 more than our old rent. And now the rent would have been higher than their mortgage. So I love stories like that. Okay, so be brave, explore. Just a quick little chart. This is actually in your worksheet. If you receive one, if you didn't, I'll make sure that you get a copy of it. But this is done by Keeping Current Matters, which is a very respectable company in the real estate industry. They do analysis and all kinds of stuff, and they talk to real estate and loan companies nationwide. the cost of renting versus buying, right? So historically, the percentage of income needed to afford median rent historically is 25.8%. Now it would cost 27.7 of your income for the median rent, because rent has gone up. Yes, we're in a recession, rent did not stop going up, okay? Percentage of income needed to afford median home, that's home buying, right? Historically was 21.1%. Now, because of our beautiful low rates that we have, is 17.5% to be able to afford the home. And you tell me which one looks better, right? Renting or owning. And even if you decide you cannot, like you decide unanimously that you cannot buy, explore it. What I tell people is it doesn't cost you anything to explore. It doesn't cost you anything to talk to a reputable lender. It will cost you a lot of money if you don't. And maybe it won't, but what does it cost you? Time, right? So encourage people around you that are wondering and are saying things that may not be true, because you don't really know your situation until you talk to the expert, okay? All right. Last but not least, okay. You can't buy a home if you have a student loan debt. So I had a few clients actually in the last 2-3 years that are in the medical industry. So they have their student loan, big student loan debts, and they were buying. But I don't really know enough about like how all that works in the lending world. So Michelle, could you just share with us a little bit briefly about how that works with the student loan?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, you can buy, assuming all other parameters are good to go, if you have student loan or student debt. Different loan programs, again, conventional FHA, have their own set of guidelines on how to calculate your student loan debt. So I'm not going to get in the weeds with it, but there's different formulas and different calculations that go on behind the scenes. If you're in a conventional loan product or an FHA loan product, we might be looking at a percentage of your balance. We might be looking at a percentage of your payment. We might be considering that it's deferred and calculate things differently that way. So yes, you may absolutely afford or buy a home if you have student debt, assuming it fits into your parameters in the loan application process and get you your pre-approval.
Awesome. So that concludes our myth busting workshop. Oh, I got to the right slide. Sorry, I don't remember the order of my slides. So if you're watching this replay, and of course, if you're the live audience, who I happen to know already, Michelle and I want to create a special offer. You can just make an appointment with Michelle and myself and have a free, no obligation virtual consultation. It'll be, it'll probably be 15 to 20 minutes just to have an idea, get some of your questions answered. No obligation. We're not trying to like make you our client if you don't feel comfortable with that, right? It's a two-way street, by the way. We gotta like you too.
Yeah.
Right, Michelle? High five. High five.
Yeah,
Okay.
we love everybody.
Oh, right. We love everybody. Sorry. Really, I was kidding. We love everybody.
Yeah.
But explore. If you're not already working with a lender, you should be exploring to see what's out there, what's available for you, and to see if it's a possibility, if it's an opportunity indeed for you and your family. Okay.